So hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I put out the Black Americans reaction to this Leviathan, and I said it in that video. If you watched it, and I said it that I'm going to be putting out for white folks reaction as well, because I don't know, there's a mix up somewhere. I also saw a particular clip where someone was literally saying that it's not real. I don't know how true is that. And when I see things like this, I want to go into the depths ways of understanding what this Leviathan is all about. So this is White American's reaction. Watch and let me know what you think about this. Let me know your honest opinion. First, credits belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you have any other research you want us to actually look into, feel free to let us know in the comment section. We would love to look into it, right? And I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, subscribing, commenting, dropping super thanks, joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. So let's watch reaction coming from white Americans about the Leviathan, and I'll be back with commentaries. Let's go watch, guys.
Oh dear God, there's more than one Leviathan. This is the one off of Argentina, but there's another one up at Venezuela. There it is right there. You can see the face, you can see where the snout is, you can see where the two eyes would be. Oh my God. And you can see, like he said on his page, where she would feed at over here, and she's been moving, and that's why there's all kind of earthquakes over here. But you can see one of the eyes right here and one of the eyes right there. Yeah, these things are huge, and I'm hearing there's more than two now. Way to go. Great. Let's piss it off. Let's irritate it. So this is the one causing the Drake shake to get over to this tip of Antarctica. And its head has been slightly moving, as we can see from Google Earth. And like Detta said, this is like the belly area, aka the belly of the beast. But you cannot tell me that you don't see that. Or the other one. You can't tell me that you don't see it. Plain as fucking day. Wow. Dude, I'm learning something new every day. Thank you guys in the comment section for getting me on the right track and everything else. I can't do this without y'all. I don't know it all. I need help.
You ever wonder why some names hold weight? Why certain words feel heavy on the tongue? That like they weren't meant to be spoken. Leviathan is one of them. Say it and something ancient shifts. Most people see Leviathan as just another sea monster, a biblical footnote, a dragon of the deep, some allegory for chaos. But that is just surface level. The real Leviathan? That thing was feared not because it was big, but because it was untouchable, unlikable, unknowable. It wasn't just a monster, it was a gate. The Old Testament calls Leviathan the coiled serpent. A creature so vast it wraps around the very ages of creation. But here what they don't talk about, Leviathan wasn't alone. In some texts there were two, a male and a female. And the only reason the world still exists, because the female was killed, not out of victory, but out of fear. See, Leviathan wasn't just a beast, it was a boundary, a living border between what we call reality and whatever came before it, a living veil. And if there were two together, the barrier would be undone. That's why Leviathan is called the serpent of the abyss, the mouth of the deep. The thing that is, if unleashed, doesn't just bring chaos, it erases the structure of existence itself. And here where it gets even weirder. The Zohar, an ancient mystical text, says that at the end of days the righteous will feast on Leviathan's flesh. But why would they eat it? Unless it wasn't just a creature, unless it was holding something back. Something that once consumed changes you. What if Leviathan isn't dead? What if it's just sleeping? And what if its awakening isn't a destruction, but a return, a reset?
Angry, world-ending biblical creatures are coming out of the water, and it's exactly as the Bible describes. This is crazy. Several airplane videos in Thailand recorded an eerie biblical being emerging out of the water. This not only tells us the Bible is real, but that judgment day is coming, and we need to repent. We are seeing more and more biblical prophecies coming to pass. Are we in the final days before the return of Jesus? Let me know your thoughts below and share this video with a friend.
Yep, we need to count our days as the US has now found an angry, violent creature the size of our entire continent emerging from our waters, and our end times now officially has a date. Many are horrified after a world-ending biblical Leviathan and its head is right by Venezuela, and it is not only rising and will be fully woken up in just days, but what the US has done will end us all. As biblical verse Job 41 warns of when our ocean starts to boil like a pot, a Leviathan will start to emerge, and the end is imminent. And haunting viral videos show the waters that are named Head of the Dragon, and where the mouth of the Leviathan would be is already fully boiling up. The same biblical verse cites an increase in floods and earthquakes when the creature starts to move. And recent reports are showing a severe increase in flooding and earthquakes all along the west coast, where its body would be, with the most activity in Alaska, where the tail would be. And when a creature with the tail wakes up, that is exactly what moves first. With the US recently announcing they will run Venezuela, but many theorize, is this really for oil, or is it an attempt to keep the beast at bay?
Martin, what is the Leviathan?
The term Leviathan comes from the Bible. It might have been mentioned before then, but it's certainly in the Bible. It's a sea monster that governs all other sea monsters. In terms of what I want to talk about here, it's a book by Thomas Hobbes called The Leviathan being the state, the government, whatever you want to call it. Human beings need a state or a government, because otherwise our existence would drop into some awful state of everybody being against everybody else. And the state guarantees some level of order so that people are not stealing and harming each other just on the least whim. There are a couple of well-known quotes from Leviathan. One, which I've got here, is without a state or without a Leviathan, the life of man would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish and short. And that's how it would be. We all like to think that we're reasonable people, but in a world where there's no controlling government with associated controls, namely police and so on, it would be a case of the strongest, probably physically or best armed, persecuting effectively those who are less strong. And so we'd end up with, as he says, short, brutish lives. There's another statement that he made, actually, which is perhaps the best known statement in the whole thing. And that is, life without a government or a Leviathan would be a case of all against all. Now, when he published this book, which was about 1650, he immediately was attacked for producing it, because, of course, life isn't supposed to be like that, and Christians believed in other things. And in fact, he was nearly sentenced to death for writing this book. But throughout the ages, the last 400-500 years, it's 400, isn't it? 400 years. This book has been used. It was actually the book that was used to provide the foundation for the American Declaration of Rights and the American Constitution. So he says a lot of things in there that people would argue against. One, for example, is that you should never help anybody who is your peer and that you feel would never be able to repay you in some way or other, because they'll always feel indebted to you, and that indebtedness will make them dislike you, basically. They'll avoid you, knowing that they can't repay you. So there's a lot of wisdom in it like that. One of the problems with the book is that all the translations that I've seen anyway, I've got the Oxford one, contains some of the Old English and the Old English phrasing, which makes it a bit difficult to read. Anyway, I shall be covering Leviathan in some depth on my Patreon channel for people who like things that are immensely unpopular. Now, coming to the current day, John Gray, who you may have heard of, he's the guy who wrote Straw Dogs, has just published a new book called The New Leviathans, in which he's looking at new kinds of government, new kinds of organizations for society. The new Leviathans, he includes Russia and China, and has a good go at deciding whether they are superior to the Leviathan that is common in the West or not. I think he quite likes the Chinese one, actually, for various reasons. Anyway, if you have the inclination, if you want to get an uncensored account of human behavior and human nature, then you should read Hobbes' Leviathan.
Let's talk about the Leviathan head that was found on Google Earth maps, and let's dive into this. So I was looking into all of these images on Google Earth for myself. Now there is a head that looks like a serpent's head that is near Antarctica, and you can see it very clearly. You can look this up for yourself. If you go to the Antarctica on the Google Earth, you can see this. Now there are people that said they have been looking at this over the years, and it looks like its head has been turned. Also, on Google Earth, you can see a lot of areas that have been iced over that actually have bubble formations. There is also recent studies from this area over by Antarctica and the South Pole that they have been seeing rays and radiation, cosmic rays that only would come from space, are actually coming up and out of the South Pole. Now, when I zoomed into one of the islands that was on what looks like this serpent's head, okay, there's an island on it called Coronation. We all know what coronation means, when someone is getting coronated. There's also a base on this head. When I zoomed in, all of the mountains and everything had like this glowing radiance around them, around everything on this island. You can't zoom in much on this island, but this is one area you were able to zoom in on. Now, if I zoom into the very front of what looks like the serpent's head, we can see 7 little dots, which are also islands, right? 7 marks completion. There were 7 heads. There were multiple heads to the Leviathan. Now, there are other sightings on Google Earth that look kind of similar to this, where it looks like you can see a serpent's body, and when you measure it on Google Maps, they have a measurement, and it is actually very, very large. And I started thinking about the flood, right? The Great Flood, where there was giants in the land. There was altered DNA of animals, right? There was the Nephilim. And I started finding actual formations frozen in time, right? Because they calcilize, right? They become formations of clay, of sand, of rock, right? And if you look into this, you actually can see many things. But even from a bird's eye view from Google Maps, you can see these things frozen in time. There's even an article called Frozen in Time about Antarctica and the ice shield that goes over what they believed used to have many rivers, mountains, hills. It used to be a civilization. And this is where rays are actually coming from. And they literally say it looks like it is frozen in time. Hence the bubbles even under the ice glass that you can visually see on Google Earth. Now, I'm diving into this today because we know in the Old Testament, it was spoken of 6 different times. But then we got Revelation 13, which is the 7th time it is spoken of. Now, when you look up, what does Leviathan mean in Hebrew? It literally means to twist and to coil. So as we see physical manifestations of this, we know that this beast has multiple heads. And when one of the heads gets wounded, it has more heads. So it is very hard to actually defeat this. That is why it says that God is the one that actually will defeat this, but it will torment the children of God. And so what we are seeing in the physical, what we are seeing in the physical manifestation, we are also feeling released in the spiritual realm. And so I want to release this video today because I believe we are dealing with the heads of the Leviathan. We are dealing with with the twisting and the turning. We are dealing with the division. Come on. God came to bring unity, but the enemy has come to divide. And so I release this message today to open eyes to see. Please like and share this message if it touched your heart so it can help wake someone else up.
Terra Infinita map. And the Leviathan. But before we get started, TikTok, this is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please don't get your panties in a wad. And here's what I want to say about the Terra Infinita map. It makes more sense because look at the sheer size of this thing. Just hang on. You got to go all through South America, all along the coast of North America, all the way to Alaska, where the tail starts up here, and then come over. Well, I mean, the whole thing's a tail, probably, but you know what I mean. And then you come all the way over here, across the Bering Sea. That's massive. So, if you consider right here is our little known lands, and then the ice ring probably meant to keep us and the Leviathan in together. But this would make more sense under a dome right here, or just under one massive, massive dome. I think the Earth is a whole lot larger than they're telling us, period. If not identical to this, the other one, or something like this. And you still have all the lands around the outside. I think it's just massive, and they're not telling us that. And now they're in South America, bombing the shit out of it, trying to bomb its eyes and stick bombs in its mouth so it'll be super pissed off when it wakes up. So this would only make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no way it's just this section right here, and you've got a dragon that goes from all the way down, you know what I'm saying? Over here, all the way around. That makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, could it? I mean, I suppose so. But at the same time, if there's more than one, and there have been found on Google Maps more than one, it would have to be massive.
2 years ago, I made a video showing how it looks like South America used to connect to Antarctica, and how it looks like something may have busted through there. I think it's about time we revisit this topic. Now let me start off by saying, how much can we trust these maps, especially when this one we're looking at is a globe? Now keeping that in mind, I want to show you the 1587 Montes map. It's a real map, and you can see this would be America, this would be South America. And it appears they once used to connect, just 500 years ago. Now you might not know this yet, but I've made 20 videos on how dragons 100% existed, and they're petrified all over this earth. We walk on their remains. Here's one all in red in the west coast of the United States. It's even called the Black Dragon Reservoir, where its mouth is, and you can see this is its jaw. Here's teeth, its entire jawline. Molars, there's its eye. This whole thing is its head. There's petrified dragons everywhere, dead ones. And when I made this video talking about this petrified dragon from 2 years ago, I was under the assumption that they were all dead. But some things have made me wonder, if I'm being honest. And a lot of these things have been brought to my attention by this creator on the TT platform. Go give him a follow and check out what he has to say. But I want to give you some of my thoughts based on some of his. Now, he does a lot of content on how these serpents are still alive, just dormant. And not only is there one down there, but one right up here, right by something in the news recently. Now, when I first came across this theory that there was a chance they were alive, I didn't take it too seriously, but I am to the point in my life where I don't disregard anything. And you can see how this creature looks very similar to how an alligator might breathe. And when I heard Detta's Universe talking about the hurricane patterns, hurricanes that just frequent this area and could be caused by this beast trying to suck in to feed. But it wasn't that opened my mind even more. No, it was actually when he talked about the million-ton monster algae that's poisoning everything from Africa to America. Because I live in Florida, and there's red tide that seems to appear out of nowhere and is very toxic. It hurts my lungs to breathe in when I'm at the beach and there's red tide. And I couldn't help but what they called that red tide and the remnants of it. Sargasm. SAR, which could mean suspicious activity report. And well, do you know any other word that sounds like gasm, maybe with an O at the beginning of it, and that is a release of fluids? So maybe not only is he sucking in and feeding, or she, maybe she's also regurgitating, sargasm. And you would notice where that would come out, right here. And did you see the wave and wind pattern? That's right. And here's where all that red tide, which is super toxic, acidic, almost like vomit would be. I also found this extremely interesting. He says this serpent comes through here, comes up through California, where its belly would be, and it actually bulges out. But I found this very interesting. Anchorage, Alaska is right here, where he pointed out Anchorage, where he could be anchored down, and this is the Bering Sea, and Bering reminds me of children bearing. Now his theory is that all this activity in Venezuela is because this thing is waking up, and they're going to bomb it to try to sedate it. He's also pointed out the name of the Nagasaki bomb, and Naga just happens to be a divine serpent-like being. Now, I'm not going to lie, I have extremely mixed thoughts on this. One, I know that giant monstrosities of animals existed here. Dragons, all sorts of really wild creatures. There's that dragon in the West Coast. There's even a petrified dragon down here in the southeast. But to think there might still be some of them living, it's hard to wrap your head around, but I don't totally discount it. But there's a few reasons why I think it's true and why I might not think it's true. Now, this red tide poisonous algae stuff really got me thinking that there's a chance it was alive. However, this is Mount Rainier in Washington, and I've done a video on how volcanoes and the lava that comes out of them is remnants of dragon. It's probably their insides that could allow them to breathe fire. I know that sounds crazy. But if a bombardier beetle can create liquid hot acid by combining two sacks of fluid that it has, well, so could a dragon. And the insides of dragons are what causes volcanoes. That's literally a dragon's face, and that's a volcano. So maybe that dead, petrified serpent is still just leaking out some of that ancient material. Or maybe it is sargasming. And this, well, maybe it is breathing, but when you take a closer look, these aren't air holes or anything that anything could breathe out of. They're literally islands, solid rock islands. And not only that, but there's a literal petrified ancient dog creature, some sort of dragon, petrified on it. And when you scroll up to this other one near Venezuela, where it would be breathing, those are again islands, one of them being St. Lucia. Now here's some petrified rock at St. Lucia. And you know what I think that is? Well, here's an alligator's snout. And do you see those spikes up there? I'm just saying. That doesn't look like anything that's coming back to life to me. But then I do come back to this 1587 map, where it sure looks connected to me. And like I said, I did this video 2 years ago, so it's at least been disconnected that long. Now, I might not have a final verdict on this, but I do have some final thoughts. And that is whether this thing is dead and petrified or gonna come back to life and wreak havoc on the world we know, it doesn't matter. The end goal is to have no fear, because fear is the enemy's #1 tool. And if you give in to fear, and you live in fear, and you act out of fear, well, then you've lost. Maybe we're just here being tested to see which side of things you choose, and maybe this is our final reckoning. Because after all, Revelation 13:3 of the Bible describes one of the heads of a beast receiving a seemingly fatal head wound, which is then miraculously healed, causing the entire world to marvel and follow that beast in worship and allegiance. Now, I always thought that referred to someone that got an ear wound, but maybe, just maybe, it's talking about another beast, another Bible verse to think about. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of it. Now, go check him out on the TT, and I give credit where credit is due. Of course, all this for entertainment purposes. I don't really think that petrified or living dragons exist. No, I live on a spinning globe. I evolved from a chimp, and some Big Bang created us all. Definitely not the Heavenly Father. Entertainment only.
Anyways, welcome back, guys. And like I said, this is the reaction coming from the white community, right? And on this end, I just went more deep into the research to really understand the history, how it started, what prompted it, how the name was originated, east, west, north, and south. Like I said from the beginning of this video, credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we use in our today's episode, and this video is just for educational purpose. So I'll just go ahead and let this play so that you guys can literally listen, and then I'll be back to say what I want to say.
When Americans talk about Leviathan, they are usually navigating a complex historical tension between two things: a 17th century book by Thomas Hobbes and a modern metaphor for an all-powerful government. The history of Leviathan in America is a story of a philosophy that was officially rejected, but remains practically indispensable. 1. The Founding Era. The Anti-Hobbes Consensus. In the 1700s, Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan, 1651, was the bogeyman of American political thought. Hobbes argued that because human nature is nasty, brutish, and short, we need an absolute, undivided sovereign to prevent a war of all against all. The rejection. The American founders, heavily influenced by John Locke, viewed Hobbesian absolutism as a form of tyranny. Alexander Hamilton called Hobbes's ideas an absurd and impious doctrine. The paradox: despite their public dislike for Hobbes, the founders shared his core assumption that humans are self-interested and competitive. This led to the creation of a government that had Leviathan-like power, the ability to tax, raise armies, and enforce law, but was caged by a constitution and a Bill of Rights. 2. The 19th century, civil war and state power. The American Civil War forced a reevaluation of Hobbesian ideas. The question became, can a state survive if its authority is divided? Secession versus sovereignty. Hobbes had warned that divided power leads to civil war. When the United States nearly collapsed in the 1860s, legal scholars began to look more kindly on the idea of a permanent, indivisible union, a concept that shares DNA with the Hobbesian state. 3. The 20th century, the growth of the beast. In the 1900s, the term Leviathan shifted from a philosophical text to a political slur. The New Deal and World Wars. As the federal government expanded under FDR and through the Cold War, critics on both the left and right began using Leviathan to describe a bloated, impersonal bureaucracy. Robert Higgs's Crisis and Leviathan. In 1987, economist Robert Higgs published a seminal work arguing that the Leviathan, big government, grows during national crises, wars, depressions, and never fully shrinks back to its original size afterward. 4. Modern day, security versus liberty. Today, the history of the Leviathan in America is most visible in the debate over national security. The surveillance state, post 9/11, the surveillance Leviathan, a term used to describe the NSA and modern data collection, reflects the classic Hobbesian trade-off. Citizens give up privacy and liberty in exchange for the sovereign, the state, protecting them from terror and chaos. Summary table: the evolution of Leviathan. Era. Key, meaning. View of government. 1776. A warning of tyranny. Government is a necessary evil. 1865. A tool for unity. The union is perpetual and supreme. 1930s to 70s. The welfare warfare state. Government is a provider and protector. 2000s plus. The security state. Privacy is traded for safety. Would you?
I just hope I tried, honestly. I just hope I really tried, because like I said, on this particular end, I have to go more deep into the history to really understand what the Leviathan, the history, how it started, where the name was originated from, because I came to understand that we have the biblical version of the Leviathan, and then we have the power version of the Leviathan, like it's just on a different note. But now seeing a lot of people reacting that the Leviathan is actually going to come, the Leviathan is going to have this or that, is now getting me more curious. In fact, even to the point of me filming this particular video, I am still curious to know more. Please, if you have anything you want me to know, you want me to research on, let me know in the comment section. If you have any research pilot for me, you just want to refer me to go see, to go read, to go understand, I'll really love that, because I'm so interested to know every single thing regarding this, right? This is just for educational purpose. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do it, subscribe, like this video, drop me your comments, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. And I want to say thank you so much for subscribing, liking, commenting. I want to say thank you so much for joining my membership and also dropping super thanks. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. Thank you so much for staying sticking with me to the end of this video. And yes, with no further ado, like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Mwah.